Have you heard about the new $6,000 tax break for seniors? Some are calling it a senior bonus, and depending on your situation, it could mean serious savings. Lawmakers are pushing a plan that would let people 65 and older subtract up to $6,000 each from their taxable income, on top of the standard deduction. For couples, that could mean $12,000 extra just for being over 65. But what does that actually mean for you? And what would it take to qualify for this senior bonus? Let's break it down. This is a new kind of tax break, a bonus deduction that reduces your overall taxable income. And here's the part that really matters. Whether you benefit or not comes down to one thing: your income. Imagine you're retired, living on Social Security, maybe a small pension, or some savings. If your income is under $75,000 for an individual or $150,000 for a married couple, you'd likely qualify for the full $6,000 deduction per person. That means the IRS would look at a smaller income number when deciding how much you owe, and for many people, that could mean a few $100s in real tax savings. Here's where it gets even more interesting. This deduction is on top of what seniors already get. People 65 and older already receive a little boost, around $2,000 extra for individuals and a bit more than $3,000 for couples. This would stack on top of that. It's one way lawmakers are offering a bit of relief to help make life more manageable for older Americans. But not everyone gets the full amount. There's something called a phase-out. Once your income goes over $75,000 for singles or $150,000 for couples, the deduction starts to shrink. And the Senate version shrinks it quickly, using something called a 6% phase-out rate. That just means for every dollar you earn over the limit, you lose 6 cents of the deduction. So even a small bump in income can chip away at the benefit fast. Even if you're under the income threshold now, it's not always obvious what could push you over in the future. Some types of income, like required minimum distributions from retirement accounts or part-time work, might add up faster than expected. That's why some folks near retirement are already thinking ahead, making small adjustments so they don't accidentally miss out. But here's something else that's been brought up, and it's worth thinking about. What happens if the cost of living keeps going up, but the income thresholds for this deduction stay the same? If inflation continues and your income rises just a little each year to keep up, you could find yourself slowly phasing out of the benefit, even if your real buying power hasn't changed much. In other words, you might not actually feel any richer, but the IRS could still count you as earning too much to qualify. That's one concern many advocates have already raised. They want to see the income limits adjusted over time to keep pace with inflation, but that's not currently written into the bill. Also, this deduction doesn't last forever. It's temporary. Right now, the plan is for it to apply starting in the 2025 tax year, and it's set to expire at the end of 2028. That's just 4 tax years, and unless Congress decides to renew it later, it would disappear after that. You might be wondering, why only 4 years? Why not just make it permanent, especially if it's supposed to help older Americans? Well, part of it comes down to budgeting rules. In Washington, when they write these big tax bills, they often set time limits on certain parts to keep the overall cost of the bill down on paper. It makes the numbers look better, at least temporarily. It's a political strategy that's been used before with other tax breaks too. But here's the tricky part. Once something is labeled as temporary, it becomes vulnerable. It means Congress will have to vote again down the road to renew it. And there's no guarantee they will. It might depend on who's in charge at the time or what else is going on with the economy. So while this deduction could help now, there's a chance it disappears just a few years later, right when some people are just getting used to it. Imagine retiring in 2026, planning your income around this deduction, only to have it vanish in 2029. That could throw off some people's budgets, especially for folks who rely on careful planning. Knowing what to expect at tax time makes a big difference. That's why some people are already pushing for this to be extended or made permanent before it even starts. And if you've ever followed politics, you know how uncertain that can be. Things can change quickly. One election, one shift in priorities, and suddenly that renewal doesn't happen. That's why many experts say it's smart to take advantage of the deduction while it's there, but not to count on it being around forever. It's more like a limited time offer than a new standard. There's also the fact that these kinds of deductions don't just happen by accident. They're usually part of a much bigger package, and that's the case here too. The senior bonus deduction is just one piece of Trump's big, beautiful bill, and not every part of it is good news. Some of the other parts of this bill could actually end up making things harder for older adults, especially those on tight budgets or living in rural communities. For example, hospitals that serve a lot of low-income patients, the kind of places many older Americans rely on, could see a drop in funding. That's because the bill proposes changes to how much federal money states can collect through something called hospital provider taxes. Right now, states can use these taxes to bring in more Medicaid funds. But under the Senate version of the bill, those limits get lowered, which means states might get less support from the federal government. If that happens, local hospitals might need to cut services or delay upgrades. In some places, it could even mean layoffs or closures. And if you've ever had to drive a long way just to see a doctor or get a prescription filled, you know how hard that can already be. Then there's the part about work requirements. Now, seniors are mostly exempt from this, which is good, but the rules are getting stricter for other adults who rely on programs like Medicaid or SNAP. That includes caregivers, adult children, or neighbors who may be helping you day to day. If they lose access to those benefits, it can create ripple effects that touch seniors too, even indirectly. And if you live in a household with multiple generations, like a grandparent living with a working-age son or daughter, those changes to benefits could affect everyone under the same roof. These kinds of trade-offs are buried deep in the bill, but they matter, especially in communities where families rely on each other to get by. At the end of the day, this deduction is meant to give seniors some relief, and for many, it will. But it's also wrapped up in a bigger, more complicated package. And not every part of that package is going to feel like a bonus. That's why it's important to look at the whole picture, not just the headline. The $6,000 deduction sounds great, and for many middle-income retirees, it really could help. But it's not going to apply to everyone equally. And it may not last long. If you qualify, use it while it's here. If you're not sure, talk to someone who can walk you through your income, deductions, and how this might affect you in 2025 and beyond. Let's talk about where things stand. The House already passed their version of the bill, which includes a $4,000 bonus deduction for seniors. The Senate version offers $6,000, but with stricter income rules. If the Senate passes a different version, the two sides have to negotiate a final version that both can agree on. Only then can it go to the president to be signed into law. For now, the Senate is expected to vote sometime around early July. But these things can shift quickly, and what's in the final bill may look different from what we're seeing today. If you're retired and living on a moderate income, this might help you most. It's not life-changing money, but a few $100s in savings at tax time is still something. If you're still working or have higher income, you might not see much benefit. And if you're already paying little or no taxes, this deduction probably won't make a big difference. That's why some people are pushing for tax credits instead, which will be more helpful to low-income seniors. But that's not what this is. We're watching the process closely. There's still time for changes. They might adjust how much the deduction is, who qualifies, or how long it lasts. And once the final version is passed, if it passes, we'll know exactly what's in it. If you're 65 or older, or getting close, this is definitely something to keep an eye on. If you have a friend, neighbor, or family member who might benefit, go ahead and share this with them. I'll keep following it and let you know when there's more. Stay safe and take care. I'll see you again soon.